Welcome back to the channel where today we are going to be previewing the Chicago Bears for the 2026-2027 season. And without further ado, let's get into this Bears preview. Starting off with the coaching staff, they kept their head coach, they kept their DC, and they basically the only change they made was to their offensive coordinator. We'll start off with the head coach, the main man himself, Ben Johnson, entering his second year as the Bears head coach. In year one, he led them to an 11-6 record, won the NFC North, beat the Packers in the playoff, almost beat the Rams in the divisional round, had a top 10 offense. It was just a home run hire. We all knew that Ben Johnson was likely going to be a hit as a hire, right? He was one of the better candidates just we've seen coming from Detroit, being the Detroit offensive coordinator, having basically three straight top 10, top five offenses with the Lions, coming over to the division rival Chicago Bears. And it just went basically as we expect. To be honest, it was just another insanely successful year of for the Bears offense as a whole, and you just can't really ask for more. And honestly, it should be better in year two as the team, especially the quarterback, Caleb Williams, has another year under this offense, more experience under this offense. I should be even better year offensively, at least for Caleb Williams and the overall, you know, trying to think of the word. The overall execution of the offense should be better. Maybe the talent is pretty similar, but I do think it'll be executed better just with that extra year of familiarity. He brings in offensive coordinator Press Taylor. Not really much of a impact the OC position really has here in Chicago because you're not going to take play calling away from Ben Johnson. Quickly talking about Press Taylor, he was the Bears pass game coordinator last year. He was the Jags OC before in 2022 to 2024. He has a little bit of coaching or a little bit of quarterback coaching background. The Jags did have good offenses in 2022 and 2023 when he was their offensive coordinator. So he's not a bad guy to have in the building, even if he's not going to have the biggest impact on this Bears offense. And you saw, what is it, Declan Doyle, I believe his name was, the OC last year for the Bears get promoted. Not necessarily promoted. I guess you can count it promoted because he's going to a Ravens team who has a defensive minded coach. So he basically got promoted from an OC under an offensive minded head coach to an OC under a defensive minded head coach down there in Baltimore. We could very well see the same thing with Press Taylor because there is something to like with him. And if the Bears offense does well, you're gonna go to the source there and try and see what you can get out of Press Taylor. And then the other guy that actually has a big role as the main defensive coach on the staff is Dennis Allen. It's the second year as the Bears defensive coordinator. The Bears defense wasn't the best last year, but I don't think that was completely on Dennis Allen. They got banged up a lot in the secondary. Their D line and their pass rush really wasn't existent. So I don't think you can put too much of that on Dennis Allen. I think for majority of his coaching career, Dennis Allen's been a very good defensive mind. Maybe not a guy you want as your head coach. Didn't go the best in New Orleans as a head coach, but I think one of those guys is a defensive coordinator, defensive mind. You'll absolutely take Dennis Allen. He was the Saints DC from 2016 to 2021. He was their head coach from 2022 to 2024. And through his entire tenure with the Saints, had some good defenses, had some really good defenses as well. So definitely a good coach at defensive coordinator. Maybe not one of the best defensive minds in the league, but just a good quality coach and definitely a coach that isn't going to necessarily be the reason you lose games if you can give him a good roster, which maybe the defense still isn't the most talented going into this season, which we'll get into when we talk about the defense. But I definitely don't think a potential lack of production from the defense is going to be completely Dennis Allen's fault. So overall, you have one of the better coaches in the league in Ben Johnson. You have an intriguing offensive coordinator in whatever role he's going to have. And then you have a solid coach there with Dennis Allen to create a good coaching staff. Now to talk about this Bears offense and to start off with the main offseason changes that this Bears team made on offense. We'll start off with the biggest change, maybe one of the bigger changes. They made two really big changes. The first one is deciding to trade away DJ Moore. They traded him for a second round pick. He had an amazing first year in Chicago in 2023 with Justin Fields. Basically, played a major factor in the reason that some Bears fans wanted to keep Justin Fields instead of, you know, drafting Caleb Williams. Obviously, they made the right decision keeping Caleb. But DJ Moore had that great year after they traded for him from the Panthers. But then 2024 happened in his first year with Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson. It wasn't the best. He had actually it was a solid season. He had 960 and 6 in his first year with Ben Johnson, or not first year with Ben Johnson, first year with Caleb Williams. Then his first year with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, he had 680 and 6. He seemed to slowly get phased out of the offense for guys like Loveland, Dunze, Luther Burden. And I feel like it made sense to move on from DJ Moore. Not that he's a bad player. Again, I think they got worse talent wise at receiver by moving on from DJ Moore. But considering, I forgot the exact number of the contract, he got a decent sized contract with the Bills. You got a second round pick, which you ended up doing some trades and ended up taking tight end Sam Roush, who we'll talk about in a little bit. So you got good value out of DJ Moore, and maybe it was time to move on from him as you want other guys to step up into that role. So yes, they got worse at receiver, but it might have been the right decision overall. They also lose Olamide Zacchaeus, who honestly, at best, he's just okay depth and nothing really more. So not really nothing notable there. And then in terms of the receivers they added, they bring in Khalif Raymond, Xavier Thomas are the two receivers. Very similar players as those gadget type, speed type guys. Raymond a little bit more of a veteran guy. Uh, He's currently their starting slot receiver, and as a receiver, because his he's better as a return man, but as a receiver, he's a fine player. Had almost 300 last year with the Lions. Okay player again. Downgrade from DJ Moore, but not a horrible player. And then Xavier Thomas, their third round pick out of LSU. He's their backup slot receiver and also plays a very similar role to Khalif Raymond. Don't know how much of an impact he'll make right away, which also part of the reason why they got worse at receiver, because they also got worse at receiver depth as well. They don't really have a lot of depth there. So they definitely downgraded at receiver. Then the other major loss was Drew Dalman, the out of nowhere retirement of Drew Dalman. He was a pickup last offseason. They brought him in from Atlanta, and he was one of the better centers in the league. He was part of the turnaround for the Bears, not only team, but their O line. He's always been one of the better centers. And again, out of nowhere, he retires after, I think, 5 seasons in the league. And obviously, that's a big loss. You're not really going to just out of nowhere, because that's what they had to do, because it was an out of nowhere retirement. They had to out of nowhere replace Drew Dalman. You're never going to get a player as good as Drew Dalman just like that. So they definitely got worse at center, but considering they had to make a quick adjustment, quick change, find a quick replacement, bringing in a guy like Garrett Bradbury is not the end of the world. He's a very capable starting center, so I don't mind the addition given the circumstances, even if they clearly did get worse at center. They also draft Logan Jones, second rounder out of Iowa. We'll see what he can provide them. And then their only real big addition on offense that we haven't talked about is Sam Roush, the guy they technically got in the DJ Moore trade, even if they had to do some, trading around. He is their current third tight end because of Loveland and Komet. So the only reason he is on the addition slide is one, he's third round pick. Two, he was part of the DJ Moore trade. Three, he's likely going to take the Cole Komet role when Cole Komet's contract is up. And Ben Johnson is the type of guy in this offense is the type to have three tight ends actually play a role. Like your third tight end can actually find himself a decent role this season. So that's kind of why I put him as addition. But in terms of getting better, getting worse, he's the third tight end coming out of the third round. So kind of a neutral change there. But overall, they got worse on offense, right, with DJ Moore and Drew Dalman. But Bradbury's not a bad player considering the circumstances. And it made sense to why they moved on from Moore. And if they get some progression out of some of their other young receivers, the DJ Moore loss won't be as bad as it currently is right now. But now we can talk about the offense as a whole. And we'll start off with the main man, the talking point that you'll have to talk about with this Bears offense, and that's Caleb Williams. First year last year in the Ben Johnson system, you definitely saw a big leap that Caleb Williams took going from year one to year two. He had almost 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. And again, you just saw him clean up a lot of the small errors that maybe he had coming into the league with the decision making and stuff like completion percentage and all that. It still wasn't the best in year two, but it was a jump from year one to year two, where I think enough of a jump where I think he can make that same jump going from year two to year three and continue to get better in those weaknesses of his, because his strengths are clear as day, right? Super talented, incredible arm. The playmaking out of the pocket is just incredible. Like it seems like he's impossible to sack sometimes. The fourth quarter comebacks that he had last year, I think it was what, like six fourth quarter comebacks. He had the Hail Mary throw to beat the Bears or to beat the Packers in the regular season game. He had the big fourth quarter comeback against the Packers in the playoffs. Again, the positives are there's insane amount of upside, insane amount of talent with Caleb Williams. And if he can just clean up some of those smaller areas, become a better decision maker, make some of the safer throws, make some of the more conservative throws, and not try to just do all this random, incredible, out of nowhere, out of structure things every single play. I think you can end up with one of the better quarterbacks in the league who is just a consistent quarterback that when is needed to can make those plays that you see Caleb Williams make all the time. You just don't want that to be you don't want to rely on him making those plays. You want him to make those plays when he needs to, but not always needs to. And I think he can get to that even if he's not there right now. So he has all the potential in the world. I'm not worried about Caleb Williams and his development. Is he going to be a good quarterback? I think it's just a matter of when, not if. Do we get that version of him this season with another year in this Ben Johnson offense, or do we have to wait another year to get that full peaked version of Caleb Williams? It's a wait and see, but I think it will happen at some point, just considering how talented he is and what he has already shown in just his first two seasons. So that's a quick discussion there about Caleb Williams. Then we talk about the running backs. We'll go quarterback then running back. It's a good running back duo with Swift and Monangai. It's really just those two, right? You got Roshan Johnson, who's an interesting fourth round pick out of Texas, but it's really just Swift and Monangai. And Swift was really good last year. It wasn't the best first year with Chicago in 2024, but he had a very good year last year, over 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, almost five a carry. Gave you a little bit in the receiving game as well. He had over four a carry in the playoffs. He had three 100 plus regular season games, a lot of explosive runs. And you saw that when he has a good O line, like he had in Philly, especially in his 2023 year in Philly, which was his best year of his career going into this season, you see he can be a good running back. He can have good vision. That's always been a thing with Swift is his vision, but it improved this year in Chicago. And he turned himself last season into a very quality running back. Maybe not a guy you want as your elite RB1 bell cow guy, but in a split backfield with Ben Johnson, who has shown to be a coach to like to have two running backs, he is perfect as that number one in a two-man backfield. And you know who's perfect as the number two in a two-man backfield? That's Kyle Monangai as the backup in his rookie season as a former seventh round pick out of Rutgers. Very impressive rookie year, almost 800 yards, five touchdowns, also over 4.5 per carry. He also showed you that if he needs to be the starter, he can play well. I mean, he had over 170 yards in the one start he had against the Bengals. I know it's the Bengals, but still, he had another 120-yard touchdown game against the Eagles where him and DeAndre Swift both had over 125 yards and a touchdown. And that's against the Eagles, too. This isn't the Bengals, this is the Eagles. That was the game that really stuck out because it was, I think, Black Friday at Philly. They were projected to lose that game. I'm pretty sure they weren't the favorite to win that, especially considering Philly was home, and they just pounded the Eagles all over, all up and down the field with Swift, Monangai just going at it. And I was like, this is a team that, yeah, you got Caleb Williams that can make all these crazy throws. You have exciting weapons and receivers, but they can just run the ball all over you throughout the entire game if they need to. And that showed, in my opinion, that this can be a very successful two-man backfield that can split touches, but still both be very effective equally. So I really like where this backfield is currently, and I still think Benungai has the potential to get a little bit better as well. Maybe not Swift. I feel like Swift at his best is going to be what we saw from him last year. But if you can just get what you saw from him last year, you're completely okay with that because that's a top 15-ish running back right there. And I think Monangai can get better right now. Maybe he's in that low 20s right now amongst running backs, just off the top of my head. But I think he can get into maybe the high 20s, maybe the 23rd best running back in the league, the top 25 running back, Swift, the top 15 running back. Having those two already gives you potentially a top 10 backfield in football. So Love the direction that they're going with at the running back position. Then the receiver room gives a little bit more question marks. I'd say we'll start off with Rome Odunze. He had a very promising rookie season, 700 yards, three touchdowns, and statistically had a very similar year in year two, 660 and six. Also did play five less games, so maybe if he was fully healthy, he would have got like 850 and I don't know, 850 and eight, which would have been an improvement from his rookie season. So it was a massive jump. You saw some improvement, right? He had a little bit less drops compared to his rookie year. He was slightly better after the run compared to his rookie year. He was 10th amongst receivers in yards per catch with 15. So he still can be that big body, possession catch, reliable, more deep threat receiver. Hasn't put up the best contested catch numbers so far in his career, but he still has it. You saw it in Washington. There's still, in my opinion, is that in there with Roma Dunze. And obviously, he's now entering year three, year two with Ben Johnson, fully healthy, and now he's one of the team's number two, one of the team's top two wide receivers with the departure of DJ Moore. Now he was the number two receiver behind Moore to begin with, but you had Luther Burden lurking in the shadows. Now there's not that third receiver. It's really just these two. So I think we could get a better year out of Roma Dunze. And this offense needs Roma Dunze to improve on what we saw from him last year. And then you got Luther Burden, who seems to be everyone's favorite young up and coming receiver. It seems like everybody loved Luther Burden coming into the draft, and everyone still loves Luther Burden. And he had a very promising rookie season. He had 650 yards, two touchdowns. Again, his main role was like that sort of gadget type player. Like, oh, we'll throw you a RPO here. We'll give you a jet touch pass. We'll throw you a bubble screen. And you just catch the ball behind the line of scrimmage and make a bunch of guys miss. That was his main role last year. And he still managed to get 650 and two. And now he's getting thrown into one of the true number one outside receiver roles with the trade of DJ Moore. And I think he can excel in that role. You saw a little bit of it in Missouri, you saw a little bit of it in the NFL. And I think that he will definitely take advantage of those opportunities of being able to be a true wide receiver instead of a gadget guy. There are still the issues, right? Like he hasn't done a lot of it in the NFL. He does need to clean up some drops, but there it's definitely in there, right? The ability after the catch is insane. He has the athleticism. He was second round pick out of Missouri, a lot of college hype, especially just as a college player, it feels like. So there's a lot to love with Luther Burden. I really like Luther Burden. It seems like everyone likes Luther Burden, and we'll see what he can do again in that true number one role. Also, there was some injury concerns in the like training camp. Should be healthy week one though. It seems like he might miss preseason and all that stuff, but he should be ready to go week one. So maybe it doesn't start off perfect just without all that practice and training camp and preseason. But I do think by the end of the year, Luther Burden will establish himself as a good, potentially very good young true wide receiver. And the reason those two guys' improvement in play is super important is because the depth outside of that isn't really that good. You have Khalif Raymond, who's the free agent pickup we talked about, the slot guy, right? Kind of the role that you saw Luther Burden play last year. He had his okay season last year with the Lions. The one time he was a full time starter in 2021 with Detroit, he did have 570 and four, so he can put up decent numbers. He doesn't drop the ball that much, so a good, reliable veteran option in the slot role. When you're running three receivers, it's not the end of the world to have Khalif Raymond. You're not going to probably do it a lot because you have two running backs, you have two tight ends, and you have your other two receivers. So you don't really need to rely on Khalif Raymond a ton. But if when you do, it's not the end of the world to have him be that slot guy for you. Then you got Xavier Thomas, their third round pick out of LSU, another gadget speed guy similar to Khalif Raymond. He's got good hands, just like Khalif Raymond. Maybe not the highest ceiling or not the highest floor for Khalif or for Xavier Thomas, but I do like his ceiling, because yes, you get all these receivers that are drafted high because they're super fast, and a lot of them maybe don't work out because there's a lot more to being a receiver than running super fast. But you also can't teach speed, right? So if you can teach him all the other, fundamentals of being a receiver and pair those along with the speed, you can get a pretty good receiver, which is why he has a maybe high floor, low ceiling for Xavier Thomas. You also got Jade Walker, their I think undrafted free agent. He had some moments last season in a very, very small role. Didn't really play much his rookie year, only 10 targets. Did have 9 catches, 87 yards, and 2 touchdowns on just 10 targets, which is pretty decent. And he also had that super impressive game tying touchdown in the regular season game against the Packers. And he also has the really cool celebration that he does. And then you also got a guy like Scotty Miller, who he's been around the league, never really produced a ton. Did have 500 yards and 3 touchdowns in 2020 when he played with Tom Brady in the Bucks. Obviously, that was 6 years ago, but he's okay depth at best. And that's basically it. Again, not a lot of proven talent. There's honestly not any proven talent on this entire team outside of maybe Khalif Raymond is pretty proven for what he is, but there's still question marks with Roma Dunze. There's question marks with Luther Burden. There's question marks with Xavier Thomas, and even question marks with a guy like Jade Walker, and not a lot of depth either outside of Rome and Burden. But again, it's not the end of the world that they don't have the craziest depth, because if guys can stay healthy, you only need 2 receivers because you have one of the better tight end duos in the NFL, maybe even one of the better tight end trios in the NFL. And we'll start with Colston Loveland, who just another hit of a draft pick for the Bears. He had a great rookie season, more specifically, a great second half of his rookie year, ended with 700 yards, 6 touchdowns in total, only 2 drops. So he already became one of the more reliable, big body, deep threats at the tight end position. He can play a slot, he can play that slot receiver role as well. He's very agile for his size, right? You wouldn't think a guy that big can move like that, but he actually can. And again, I mentioned how, yeah, it was overall a good rookie year, but if you look at just the second half in his last 10 games, he had 600 of his 760, or no, he had 600 of his 700 yards in the last 10 games, and he had 6 of his 6 touchdowns in the last 10 games. He averaged almost 60 yards a game. Had that Bengals game, yes, it's the Bengals, but he had that Bengals game where he had a crazy game. He had 8 catches, 137 yards in the playoff game against the Packers. You really saw his impact slowly build up as he slowly took over as that tight end one in this offense. And he was drafted high for a reason, and it panned out. And it couldn't have been a better rookie year for Colston Loveland. And now that he is that true guy, that true number one tight end with Cole Kmet as the solidified tight end two, him being the solidified tight end one, I think it could be an even better year for Loveland in year two. Speaking of Cole Kmet, very good tight end too, right? He's consistently been the tight end one for this Bears team up until they drafted Colston Loveland for the 5 years that he was the starting tight end. And he was a fine starting tight end, wasn't one of the worst starting tight ends in the league. You definitely could have got worse than Cole Kmet, but he definitely wasn't one of the best in the league. But now that he's the true tight end two, he instantly becomes one of the better tight end twos. He had almost 350 and 2 touchdowns, also rarely ever drops the ball. Speaking of playoffs, he had the clutch touchdown against the Rams when Caleb Williams ran back 500 yards and then threw it. He threw it to Cole Kmet. Did Cole Kmet push off? I don't think it was enough to throw a flag, so I'm glad they didn't throw a flag. But again, he's the one that caught the touchdown, so there you go. He's also a very good blocker as well. Same thing with Loveland. And I just love his role now as a solidified tight end, too. And as I mentioned, it might be one of the best tight end trios in the league because of the Sam Roush pick that they made in the third round out of Stanford. He also can block pretty well. And again, I think he can take that Cole Kmet role eventually because Cole Kmet I think he's near the end of his contract. So you can let his contract ride out. And then you can have Roush basically just become your new Cole Kmet in this prominent tight end two type of system here. And I think he's a very good tight end three already. And I think he has very high potential to be a very good tight end two behind a guy like Colston Loveland. So I love the pick there out of the third round, getting Sam Roush. And overall, not the best depth right outside of maybe the tight end position, but you got some really good weapons. You got 2 quality backs. You have 2 potentially really quality receivers. You have a very good tight end, a very good tight end two, and a very good tight end three. So a lot to work with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. And the last part of this offense that we'll talk about is the offensive line. It's a very good offensive line, one of the better offensive lines in the league. We'll start off with the solidified pieces, starting off with Joe Tooney, one of the best linemen in all of football, one of the more valuable players in all of football. I mean, he gets drafted by the Patriots when they were winning Super Bowls. He goes to the Chiefs, they win Super Bowls. Then he goes to the Bears, and they completely turn their team around and make the divisional round and win 11 games and win the division. It's not all Joe Tooney, but I'm just saying Joe Tooney might be one of the more valuable players in all of football. He made all pro first team for the third straight year. He's one of the best, if not the best, pass blocking guard in the entire league. He's good run blocker as well. I mean, he won they added the new what's it called? Like the protector of the year. They made that a new award. Joe Tooney won the first inaugural protector of the year and just was overall one of the best free agent signings of all offseason last season. And was the key contributor, one of the key contributors, probably him and Drew Dahlman, to completely turning around this Bears O line, which was not very good Caleb's rookie year. You invest in the O line, which has shown to be very beneficial to young quarterbacks, and it worked out. And Joe Tooney played a big role in that. And then your other stud on this O line is Darnell Wright, all pro second team last year, also one of the better run blockers in the league, good pass blocker as well. He continues to get better. How much better? Who knows? But he has shown throughout his career in the first, what, like, trying to do the math, like 3 years of his career, that 4 years of his career, three, four, something like that, that he just keeps getting better and definitely well worth the 10th overall pick they used on him. Only 25 years old. You love what you got with Darnell Wright and Joe Tooney. Now the other pieces. We'll start off with Jonah Jackson, probably the third best lineman on this team. He's just a good quality guard. Maybe he's not the superstar that Joe Tooney or a Darnell Wright is, but he's just a good quality player. Only played 4 games last year or in 2024, ever when the Bears first picked him up. But he had a good year last year. Was fully healthy. Actually, I think last year was his first year with the Bears. But he only played 4 games in 2024, comes over to the Bears, was fully healthy, was good for them in the run, was good for them in pass protection, and again, just a good quality guard. Definitely very well worth being your third best lineman. Then you got the left tackle position. And we'll actually, before we talk about the left tackle position, let's talk about the center because we kind of know who the center is going to be. At least I'm pretty sure Garrett Bradbury is going to be the starting center, even though they do have Logan Jones, who they took in the second round out of Iowa. Bradbury, he was the starting center on a not so good Patriots offensive line, so maybe that gives you a sign of where he is. But just because you're a decent center on a bad O line doesn't mean the O line's bad because of you. And I don't think that was because of Bradbury. He's not a horrible center, right? Yes, it wasn't good for the Patriots O line, but I, again, don't think that's because of Bradbury. He's a solid pass protector. And considering they cut, or not cut, but considering that they had to make a shift to center completely out of nowhere, getting a guy like Garrett Bradbury is completely fine as just you need to react quickly and make a move to get a center. Garrett Bradbury is going to get the job done. As a weak link, as the worst center on this, as the worst lineman on this team, you're completely okay with that being Garrett Bradbury. But you also do have Logan Jones, who you took out of the second round out of Iowa. He's definitely a better run blocker than he is pass blocker. Maybe not the highest upside you'll have at the center position, but I trust Iowa offensive linemen. They tend to work out more than they don't. So I don't think it's a bad pick to get a guy like Logan Jones, considering you don't have a solidified center with Drew Dahlman being your current, or with Garrett Bradbury being your current center. I didn't hate the Logan Jones pick by any means. And then the left tackle spot is very interesting because you kind of have three guys to talk about at this left tackle spot with Braxton Jones, Ozzy Trapolo, and Jedrick Wills. So Braxton Jones is probably the best player of the three, but he only played 6 games last year and he only played 12 games the year before, so he hasn't really been the healthiest. You know that when he is healthy, he is a very solid offensive lineman, but he just hasn't really shown the ability to be healthy the last 2 years. And then you got Ozzy Trapolo, who is projected to be out for majority of the season. He last year as a rookie was pretty solid, nothing spectacular, but very solid in pass and run, and still could get better. Right, he was only drafted. It was his rookie season last year, so he still has potential to get better. But he had, I think, a patellar tendon injury towards the end of last season, which is supposed to take him out for basically the entire season. But apparently, there's reports, and Ben Johnson is saying that they might get him practicing before the end of training camp, which seems insane, but that could happen. So we'll see what that takes us. We'll see what that story goes going forward. And they got Jedrick Wills, who another guy who just can't stay healthy. He basically skipped last season. He's never really been healthy, as I said before, for the previous 3 years of his career as a former 10th overall pick. The last time he was fully healthy was 2022. When healthy, he is a solid player. Nothing spectacular, nothing, not elite or by any means, but definitely not bad. So you have two guys in Traplow and Wills who are very capable backups. We just don't know when they might play football. And then you have Braxton Jones, who is a good, solid starter, just never know when he's going to play football. So there's a lot of questions with that left tackle spot, especially just when these guys are going to be healthy or not. But regardless of that, you still have Joe Tuning, you still have Jonah Jackson, you still have Darnell Wright, and you still have one of the better overall offensive lines in the entire league. So I'm not too worried as long as Braxton Jones can give you 12 games like he did in 2024, and Garrett Bradbury is solid. It should be, again, one of the better lines in the league. And it should be one of the better offenses in the league, combined with mainly the coaching of Ben Johnson, but also the talent that this Bears team has on offense. Now we can talk about this Bears defense, which definitely has a lot more to be desired and a lot more concern going to the season. We know that this offense is likely going to be a top 10 unit, not so much for the defense. And we'll start off with the changes that this team made, or at least the notable changes. First, they lose Andrew Billings, who just really wasn't that good last year for Chicago as a depth D lineman, and they replace him with Neville Gallimore, who also is a depth backup D lineman, who is a slight upgrade over Billings, not the biggest upgrade, but as a pass rushing D lineman who had 3.5 sacks last year, he definitely is an improvement over Andrew Billings, even if it's very minor. And at the linebacker position, you go from Tremaine Edmonds to Devin Bush. I think this should be an upgrade, right? I think theoretically it's an upgrade because Tremaine Edmonds seems like he's always the same player, right? You know you're going to get out of Tremaine Edmonds. He can defend the run, he can defend the pass. He's going to get over 100 tackles. He's not going to miss a ton. He might get banged up here and there, and he's definitely on the older side, but he's just a quality linebacker. And you know what you're going to get out of Tremaine Edmonds. But then Devin Bush, on the other hand, really hadn't done a lot in his career in Pittsburgh and in his first year with Cleveland. But then out of nowhere has a breakout career year where he played like a top 10 linebacker last year. So if you get that Devin Bush, it's an upgrade over Edmonds. But if you get maybe more inconsistent Devin Bush or more of what we've seen before in his career, you got worse at linebacker. So it's kind of a to be determined. But I think overall they are pretty much on a similar tier. So I left that as a neutral change at linebacker. Then at corner, they move on from Nashawn Wright and Nick McLeod, and they bring in Malik Muhammad from Texas out of the fourth round. Nashawn Wright had all the interceptions, but he also gave up a lot of plays as well. And there's a reason that the Jets only gave him a 1 year, like $3 million contract. He's also not been the healthiest. Yeah, he got 5 interceptions, but interceptions are one of the more varying stats of all time. So I don't think it's really that big of a deal to move on from Nashawn Wright. And Nick McLeod, I only put him on here because he played 40% of the snaps, but he really wasn't that great last year as a backup corner. And then Malik Muhammad, I like the upside of Malik Muhammad with all the athletic tools he has. Again, as that fourth round pick out of Texas. But because he's a fourth round pick, because he's a current projected backup, I don't think it's worth having. I don't think they got better at corner. I think they just lost some depth and and they just replaced their depth, but they added some upside, more upside at least. So future wise, I think they got better at corner and they got better upside at corner. But in terms of this season, I don't think the talent really changed much at corner. And then safety is a very interesting. They move on from Kevin Byard. They're all pro last year. They move on from Jaquan Brisker. CJ Gardner Johnson, and they bring in Dylan Tianneman in the first round, Kobe Bryant, and then Cam Lewis. I have this as a downgrade, and the only reason that's the case is because the Kobe Bryant injury. I think you could argue that Kevin Byard, coming off his all pro season, even if he hasn't always been the most consistent player, especially recently, and even if he wasn't the best his first year with Chicago, I think just overall, Kevin Byard and Kobe Bryant are pretty similar. But again, without Kobe Bryant on the field, you definitely got worse at safety because right now their safeties are the other two on this screen right now with Tianneman and Cam Lewis. I think Byard and Brisker is better than Tianneman and Cam Lewis. So that's why I have them downgraded at safety, even if I really liked the Kobe Bryant pickup. Jaquan Brisker, when healthy, he's a good player. He just really hasn't been the healthiest. He played 17 games last year, had 90 tackles, can play okay coverage, a good run defender. But again, never the healthiest. CJ Gardner Johnson in 10 games last year with the Bears was decent, provided some help in the run, had two interceptions, and was a serviceable third best safety, but nothing really more than that. And you get Dylan Tianneman on the first round. Loved that pick. Kobe Bryant loved the pickup, just wish he didn't get hurt for basically the entire season. And then Cam Lewis, who is now projected to be their starting safety, he wasn't horrible last year with Buffalo, but definitely not great and was just overall a solid player. So I definitely do think they got worse at safety just because of the Kobe Bryant injury. If Kobe Bryant didn't get hurt, I would probably leave it at neutral because I think him and Byard are close enough. Tiaman and Brisker, you could argue, are close. And Gardner Johnson and Cam Lewis, you could argue, are also somewhat close as well. So if Kobe Bryant was healthy, it would have definitely been a pretty neutral change there at safety. But because of the Kobe Bryant injury, I do think this season they got worse at safety. But now we can talk about the defense as a whole, starting off with that interior of the D line. It's not great. Let's just get that out the way. It's not great. You got Grady Jarrett, who he's an okay to not great to decent pass rushing veteran D lineman. Definitely not worth the 43 million they paid him last year, but he's not horrible. He's just okay. You have Gavon Dexter as your other D tackle, much better, right? While Grady Jarrett's been on the decline, Dexter's been on the incline. He's been playing more, he's been playing better every season. He went from 2.5 sacks his rookie year to 5 sacks to 6 sacks, gets solid pressure, and overall is just a solid pass rushing D lineman in his current version, with room to potentially get better as well. Maybe not in the run, but can get better as a pass rusher and isn't horrible as your number one pass rusher, but definitely would prefer him to be or number one D lineman, interior D lineman, but you definitely would prefer him to be your second best interior D lineman. And then again, depth, Neville Gallimore, as we said earlier, at best is a okay to solid pass rushing D lineman. Contavious Streets is another journeyman veteran type guy who just really hasn't been a starter like ever in his career. He played 7 games last year with Atlanta and was just okay at best, okay like depth at best. So yeah, not a great interior D line room. And then the edge room, it's really just Montez Sweat as the only promising player on this team. I like Montez Sweat. He got traded midseason in 2023 from Washington to Chicago, had a great 9 game stretch with the Bears, 6 sacks in just 9 games. Overall, good pass rusher. Then he took a bit of a dip in production 2024, at least sack numbers wise. But then he got right back to 10 this most recent season, was good at getting after the quarterback, was batting passes down, played solid run defense as well, even good run defense. And that was by far the worst year in 2024, sack wise. He never really does that. So I'm not surprised he got back to 10 sacks. And he also wasn't too bad in their playoff run as well. So Montez Sweat, similar to Dexter, maybe not a guy you want to be your number one edge rusher, but definitely someone you would love to be your number two edge rusher and isn't a bad number one edge rusher by any means. I think if Montez Sweat was your number one pass rusher and your number two or edge rusher and your number two edge rusher was basically another Montez Sweat, you'd be happy. But considering their number two pass or edge rusher is a battle between Austin Booker and Deo Odeyingbo, is not great. They gave Odeyingbo that 3 year, $48 million contract last offseason, did not pay out at all. 8 games last year, only 1 sack, And yes, oh, he only had one sack, but he missed half the season. If he played the full season, he probably would have ended up with three at most. Just didn't play that good when he was healthy. And he definitely, it seemed, and the thing what kind of sucks for Odiengbo, even though he definitely really didn't play well, is as soon as he got hurt, Austin Booker became healthy. And Austin Booker also didn't have the best year last year, but did make a jump from his rookie season where he only played 10 games and had 4.5 sacks. He played much better in year two. It wasn't a significant jump, it was a smaller jump, but still a jump nonetheless. And I think he can make another jump as potentially the full time starter. I think he should start over Deo Odiengbo because of the upside that Austin Booker has. If he played every game last year, he could have been top 20 in pressures, could have had maybe double digit sacks. So I like the upside of Austin Booker, even if maybe his current version isn't that great. I do think there is something to work with there. And then you also got Daniel Hardy, who really isn't much of an impact player. It's really between Odiengbo and Booker for that second edge rush position. And then you got Montez Sweat, your solidified number one edge rusher. But yeah, overall, not a great D line for this Bears team. Then we go to the linebacker room where you have a nice little duo there with TJ Edwards and Devin Bush. TJ Edwards, when healthy, never really the healthiest, only played 10 games last year. But when healthy, he's a nice impact on this Bears defense, especially ever since, or just a nice impactful player, and especially ever since going to the Bears. He can cover, he can defend the run, and once again, just a good linebacker. When healthy, he just needs to be healthy. And then again, you got Devin Bush, who had that breakout year last year in Cleveland after really not doing too much for the other majority part of his career. But again, by far was his best year in Cleveland. 3 interceptions, 2 pick sixes, 125 tackles, was great in the run, great in the pass, had 2 sacks. He showed a little bit of that his first year with Cleveland, but came out of nowhere last season. And the reason why it's kind of hard to tell whether bringing him in over Tremaine Edmonds is an upgrade is because you don't know what version of Devin Bush are you going to get. You likely know what you're going to get out of Tremaine Edmonds. You don't know what you're going to get out of Devin Bush. If you get last year's Devin Bush, it's an upgrade and a very good linebacker duo. If you get healthy TJ Edwards and last season's Devin Bush, that's a good linebacker duo. But you can also get an injured TJ Edwards and the other part of his career, Devin Bush. And in that case, it's not the best linebacker duo. You do have some nice linebacker depth, however, maybe not the most talented depth, but a lot of players, a very deep linebacker room. You got DeMarco Jackson, you have Keyshawn Elliott, Noah Sewell, Ruben Hippolyte, and Jack Sanborn. Those are 5 linebackers on the bench. Not DeMarco Jackson. He's technically your starting Sam with the defense the Bears run with the 4-3 defense that this Bears team runs. You basically have 3 linebackers anyway. So DeMarco Jackson is technically a starter, at least based on this depth chart right here. I don't actually know what defense they're running. I think it's like a 4-2 type of defense, but I'm not too sure. DeMarco Jackson was a small sample size last year, only 26% of the snaps as a backup, but he had 40 tackles, missed only 3. And yes, it was only 12 targets that he was thrown at, but he was actually pretty good in coverage in the 12 targets he had. Only 3 years in, is 28 years old, but again, a younger player experience wise. And now he is a starter in those packages where they might run a 4-3. He's going to start as that Sam linebacker. And I think he can carry over what we saw from him last year in a potentially bigger role. And then some of the true backups. You got Ruben Hippolyte. Didn't really play much his rookie season. Don't know how much we're going to get out of him. Keyshawn Elliott, their 5th round pick out of ASU. He has starter potential. He can defend the run well. Not the best in coverage, but again, the run defense is there. The blitzing threat is there as well. Noah Sewell, similar to Elliott, as he's a decent run defender, can give you a little bit in the blitz game, but not the best in coverage. Jack Sanborn, who right now is potentially their projected like 7th best linebacker. I actually don't mind the Jack Sanborn pickup. He played the first part of his career in Chicago, goes to Dallas, only played 6 games last year, wasn't the best. But when he's been healthy with the Bears in 2023, when he was in 2023, he was fully healthy for the Bears. He had 10 starts, 1 interception, 1 sack, 65 tackles, wasn't too bad in coverage. So there's still something there with Jack Sanborn because he's only 26 years old. So I didn't mind that pickup as some nice depth because Noah Sewell is still unproven. Keyshawn Elliott's obviously unproven. Ruben Hippolyte's unproven. DeMarco Jackson's unproven. Yes, Jack Sanborn recency bias isn't really proven, but he's also proven to play some good football. So I don't mind to have at least some bit of stability potentially there at your depth of this linebacker room. It has potential to be a very solid linebacker room, a lot of upside with your depth, a lot of potential with a healthy Edwards and Devin Bush, but also a lot of room for maybe not the best linebacker room. So we'll see there. But then you get to the secondary of this Bears defense, which honestly is kind of the same as the linebacker room. A lot of potential with just pure upside and health. Like if the guys are healthy, if some of these guys improve, it could be a pretty decent second. It can be a really good secondary. But if you get some injuries, if guys maybe don't take some jumps, it could be a not necessarily a bad secondary, but just an okay secondary. We'll start off with their number one guy, Jalen Johnson. One of those guys that just struggles to stay healthy, was hurt last year as well, only 7 games. But we know he can be a very good corner when healthy. I mean, in what 2020, not 2023, I think it was 2024, when he was fully healthy, he was one of the better corners in the league. He was a top 10 corner, maybe even better. So he has that ability to be a true lockdown corner. He's just got to stay healthy and stay on the field. Not really too much to say with Jalen Johnson. It's he's on the field, he's really good, but he's not always on the field. Then you got Tyreek Stevenson, who really wasn't that bad his third year in the 13 games he played, was good in the run, almost 50 tackles. He can be a 90 tackle guy. We've seen him get close to that when he's played almost the full season. He had one interception last year, wasn't too bad overall in coverage. And he just really has seemed to get slightly better every year, just overall, especially in coverage, because his strength is his run defense. And if he can keep getting better in coverage, he can turn into a very quality corner two. Right now, he's a decent, okay corner two, but he definitely has, at only 26 years old, the potential to be a good corner two alongside Jalen Johnson. Then you have your nickel, Kyler Gordon. Speaking of injuries, this guy is never healthy. He only played 3 games last year. Doing some research, it seems like the teammates of Mr. Kyler Gordon seem to be quote unquote fed up with the fact that he's never healthy and the fact that he's not practicing this offseason. Because we know when healthy, he can be a solid nickel and even be one of the better nickels in the entire league with his run defense, with his coverage. He just, again, needs to stay healthy. He's also only 26, just like Tyreek Stevenson. I'm pretty sure they're the same draft class as well. No, Kyler Gordon was 2022. Tyreek Stevenson was 2023, but they're the same age and they're one draft class apart. We know how good Kyler Gordon is. It's just we need him to be on the field, just like Jalen Johnson needs to be on the field as well. And then the depth you have outside of that, you have Malik Muhammad, right? Their fourth round pick out of Texas. I like Malik Muhammad. I like the pick, right? Super athletic corner prospect, and he's not the most consistent in coverage. It tends to happen. I feel like you get these super athletic corners that are taken rounds 3 to 4. They're not the most consistent in coverage, but you always say, oh, well, they got the physical tools to be a really good corner if they can be more consistent in coverage. That's basically Malik Muhammad. Very athletic, not the most consistent in coverage, but he's shown you the flashes and the tools that he can be a good corner. He's just got to put it together. So I like the pick in the fourth round, taking that type of player, especially with a secondary that has struggled to stay healthy. Love the Malik Muhammad pick. I think he can also give you some potential reps at nickel as well if Kyler Gordon continues to struggle to stay healthy. And if your other guys that could potentially play the nickel spot, like Terrell Smith or Jalen Jones, aren't the best, you got Terrell Smith. Didn't play too much his first 2 years. Hasn't been bad when he's played as a former fifth round pick. Was hurt all of 2025. So we'll see what he can do coming off fully healthy now. But he definitely has the talent to be a solid starter at one point and just overall good depth. And then Jalen Jones, their current projected backup slot corner. Not a horrible cover guy and run defender, but definitely not someone you would like to be your starting nickel, but might have to be because of Kyler Gordon's health concerns. So it's a decent second. It's a decent corner room. You have proven guys that are good when healthy, right? If Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, and Tyreek Stevenson are all healthy, that's a very good corner starting rotation, right? With Malik Muhammad on the bench, with Terrell Smith on the bench, and even Jalen Jones if you want to throw in there. It's just can they stay healthy? And that's the same with the safeties. Not really the same in terms of like injury concerns, like this player's injury, like they're just always hurt. But Kobe Bryant, who you pay a good amount of money to get away from Seattle, gets hurt in the offseason and is going to miss what, 4 to 6 months, I think it is. No, not 4 to 6. Yeah, 4 to 6 months, I think is what Kobe Bryant's going to miss with a knee injury. But he was good last year for Seattle, had 4 interceptions, over 60 tackles, had his best year in coverage, didn't miss a lot of tackles, which has always, or no, did miss a lot of tackles, excuse me. That's always really been his issue, is his tackling. But if he can clean that up, that's a good safety right there. We won't see that this year, unfortunately. I guess if they make the playoffs, you might be able to see Kobe Bryant come in, and he has playoff experience now, being on that Super Bowl run with Seattle. So he could provide a nice spark plug late in the season with that playoff experience. So there still is room for Kobe Bryant to make an impact on this team. It just won't be for the regular season. And then you got Dylan Tieneman, their other starting safety, first round pick out of Oregon. Loved this pick. Great speed, great ball skills. He can play man, he can play zone, middle of the field. He can be a free safety like you saw in college. He can be a strong safety like you saw in college. He can be a free safety as well. He just has a super, super high ceiling. We knew that. We knew coming into the draft he was one of the better safeties. It was Caleb Downs, the number one safety in the class. And then it was a battle between Tieneman and Nikhil, Emmanuel McNeil Warren, with Tiedemann being, I think, the clear safety too, but McNeil Warren being a very intriguing third safety there. But we knew Tiedemann was going to be a high pick going to the draft, a first round guy, second safety off the board. And I really liked his fit here in Chicago, especially with the Kobe Bryant injury. And then the depth, I mean, you got Cam Lewis, who they also signed. He likely is going to be their starting free safety with the Kobe Bryant injury. Wasn't horrible last year with Buffalo. Definitely not great, but also just overall a solid run defender and solid cover guy. Again, not someone you want starting at safety, but could be a okay, band-aid option. They also bring in Xavier Woods, who I think honestly could be better than Cam Lewis as that bridge band-aid safety. He was a sneaky solid pickup, I think, for Chicago, considering all the injuries they had, or considering the injury to Kobe Bryant. He could be a solid cover guy. He's a veteran presence. I think the ideal perfect season for Xavier Woods any given season is someone who's not going to make a ton of plays necessarily. He'll get his fair share of interceptions, but he's not going to like be all over the field as an insane playmaker, but he also won't give up a lot of plays. He was solid last year for the Titans in the 11 games he played for them. He was a solid player for the Panthers when he was with them. And he's strictly someone you want in coverage. He's not a run defender. That's why he's a free safety. He's not a run defender at all. So I think if Xavier Woods wins the job over Cam Lewis, even if Tiananmen can play free safety, you're probably going to want him to be the strong safety just because Xavier Woods is definitely someone you want at free safety. But I actually really like that pickup, and I think he should honestly get the starting job over Cam Lewis. And they also have Elijah Hicks, who's another injured safety for this team, currently on the pup list with ankle and foot injuries. Never really seen the field much in his first 4 seasons as a former seventh round pick, but he definitely has shown you some flashes when he's played. Won't see much from him this year, probably because of Tiananmen, Lewis, Woods, but there's something there with a guy like Elijah Hicks. It's a very interesting secondary, a lot of potential to be very good. And I just hope we get health out of Jalen Johnson, health out of Kyler Gordon. And again, I think that Xavier Woods is going to be the starting free safety for this Bears team. Quickly talking about this Bears special teams unit, you have a very good kicker in Cairo Santos, very consistent as well. Maybe not the strongest leg, or maybe not a guy that's going to be one of the best kickers in the league, but a very good kicker nonetheless. Very consistent kicker, right? He made 83% of his field goals last year, and his entire career, he basically makes an average of 85% of his field goals. He was 4 for 6 for last year from 50 plus. Just a good quality kicker. Then you got Corey Taylor, who was a really high projected, hyped up punter prospect just because of what he was able to do, basically being the best offensive weapon for Iowa in his final season there. He's kind of, averaged out to be just a solid punter so far in the NFL, but I definitely still think he has potential to be the punter that they took in the fourth round. And then a return game, you got Khalif Raymond, who was an all pro second team punt returner in 2024. So we know he can be a very good punt returner. He can also be a very good kick returner as well. And then Xavier Thomas has that speed to project to be a solid return man as well. Finally, looking at this Bears schedule, I have their floor at 7-11. I have their ceiling at 12-5, and I have their final prediction at 10-7. I feel like the big discussion with this Bears team is all the signs of regression, right? They have a lot of turnovers, and turnovers are very inconsistent. They had all the fourth quarter comebacks. Those probably aren't going to all happen again, right? If you're in that many fourth quarter late situations, down a lot of scores in the fourth quarter, you're probably not going to make all those comebacks again. That's why I feel like everyone's saying they're going to regress. They won 11 games last year. I do have regression technically going from 11 to 10. Really not that big of a regression. And I still think they have potential to get 12 wins. That's my ceiling for them. Maybe even 13 wins because of the upside of Caleb Williams, because of the upside of just having Ben Johnson as your coach in year two of being their coach. They have some very winnable games, right? You play the NFC South, worst division in football. You play the AFC East, which, yes, that means Bills, Patriots, who are two really good teams, but it also means Jets, Dolphins, which are very winnable. It's a tough division. The Bears are in as well, being in the NFC North. But that doesn't mean they can't beat the Packers. They beat them twice in 3 games last year. They can beat the Vikings still. Yes, they got swept by the Lions in the Lions' worst season, but they can still give the Lions good games and beat them. So they can beat most of these teams on their schedule. Their only really, really tough games are the Eagles, Seahawks, Patriots, Bills, and I guess Lions. Maybe you want to throw the Jags in there as well. But I do have their prediction overall at 10-7, a 1-win regression from their 11-win season last year because of the receiver depth or lack thereof, because of the injury concerns on in the secondary, because of the not the best D line just in general. But overall, I think it's going to be a very similar team. I think their offense, it was a top 10 offense last year. I think it should be a top 10 defense this year. It was towards the bottom last year for their defense. I think it'll be towards the bottom last year, or this year again for their defense. And overall, the team, I'm saying overall a lot, the team didn't really change much. So I wouldn't be surprised if they finish around the same record, leaving my final prediction for the Chicago Bears at 10-7. And that will do it for our Chicago Bears preview. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new. It helps the channel out a lot. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.